couple of Christmases ago, I went home and my dad like pulled me aside and he's like, you know, your Facebook posts are like really embarrassing your mom. And that's how I knew I was like coming together as a writer, you know?
Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
I want to welcome you guys out today to episode 152 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name is Chris Hollifield. I'm your host. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for dropping by, giving it a listen. However you're consuming this podcast, thank you so much for checking it out. IamSaltLake.com is the website where you can, of course, head on over there and listen to all the other conversations that I've had with people here in Salt Lake City. There's links for iTunes, Stitcher Radio. You can also find the podcast at MediocreRadioNetwork.com. Pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts, make sure to subscribe to I Am Salt Lake. That way you don't miss a single episode as I introduce you to people here in Salt Lake City that are doing some really, really cool things. This episode, I sat down with City Weekly writer Colin Wolf. We had a great conversation, got to know him a little bit better, as well as talk about some upcoming write-ups that he's done for City Weekly, as well as one that I'm really excited about a recent visit that he did out in Denver, checking out some of the marijuana dispensaries and kind of see the whole marijuana culture going on in our next-door neighbor state of Colorado. That should be hitting the newsstands here shortly. You're going to want to make sure to pick up that issue of City Weekly. We're going to get into that conversation, and Colin's going to share all about that experience of going out to Colorado. So I'm not going to talk about it too much. But before I jump into this conversation, Jay Whitaker, friend of the show, Geek Show podcast, local stand-up comedian, great guy. He's been on the podcast twice. He called up, left a voicemail sharing about a show he's doing on June 26th at Wise Guys. It's only $5. Depending on when you're listening to this podcast, hopefully it's before June 26th. I can't urge you enough to go check him out. He does a great show. Well, I'm going to let Jay tell you about it.
Hey, what's up? I Am Salt Lake Podcast. This is Jay Whitaker. I'm a comedian. And if you have heard of me, that's awesome. If you haven't, that's a problem. You may have heard me on the Geek Show podcast. You may have seen me on the Food Network. You may have seen me on ABC4 or CW30. I don't know, whatever. You may have seen me in these streets going crazy over the Los Angeles Kings. I'm doing a comedy show June 26th at Wise Guys West Valley, 7:30 p.m. I would like for you to be there. It's only $5 to see me. $5 gets you a black man and some nachos. You're going to have a good time, laugh, bring out your date, bring out your spouse, bring out your mistress. You might get some booty tonight. I don't know. You might get something. But one thing for sure, you will laugh your booty off. You try to lose weight, come to this show. All right, laughter is good for the soul. I am Salt Lake Podcast. I love you. Love you, Chris. Shout out to Chris. He's the man. Peace. One love. Is that what the black people say? I don't know what the kids say these days. All right, bye.
All right, thanks a lot, Jay, for calling into the voicemail line. Again, that voicemail line, 385-202-5926. If you got any upcoming events that you want to be played on a future episode of the podcast, then just give it a call. I'd love to hear from you guys. Why don't you guys join me now as I sit down with Colin Wolf, City Weekly writer, as he came over to my apartment here in beautiful downtown Salt Lake City. So you're a writer, blogger at City Weekly. How long have you been doing that for? I'm going to jump all over the place probably here in the beginning because I want to find out some history of you, but how long have you been with City Weekly?
Yeah, I moved here in 2011.
Okay. Now, where did you move from?
Mammoth Lakes, California. I was working for a alt weekly out there called The Sheet. It was a weekly, weird little ski town paper. My girlfriend at the time wanted to go back to school here, so we moved. And when I got into Salt Lake, the first thing I did was kind of pick up like every single publication I could find, you know what I mean? So I'd go, we were in Sugar House at the time, well, I'm still there, and I would just grab like the City Weekly slug, like all of them, and I leafed through them all, and I kind of went through and saw what they were writing about, and then made this huge list of story ideas I thought would be good for Salt Lake, like this huge, massive list, and then just basically like shopped that list around to a bunch of people and like, any of you guys interested in like these kind of stories? Long story short, like ended up at City Weekly freelancing for them. And then, and it's been 4 years now almost. So.
And that's your full-time gig then?
That is, yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So you came from California. Is that where you were born and raised, or where's your history? Where are you from?
No, I'm originally from Michigan.
So you've been kind of bounced all over a little bit. You've kind of... How long did you live in Michigan for? Like, were you born, raised?
Yeah, I grew up in Michigan, west side of Michigan, and graduated from Western Michigan University with an English degree. I was actually going to be a secondary ed teacher, and I went through all that. And then like about 6 months before I was supposed to graduate, they passed No Child Left Behind. And I was like, no, screw this. And I kind of chickened out from like being a teacher, which I still kind of regret, but changed my major around to just English and just graduated because I just wanted to be done with school.
What kind of teacher did you want to be? Like
an English teacher.
Like what age? Like?
High school.
Okay.
Yeah, I did my student teaching in a high school too, and I liked it. I actually liked teaching a lot, but I just didn't like the politics of like public schools and all that kind of stuff. And you know the whole No Child Left Behind thing. So I basically was like, I don't want to be a part of that, So I just kind of chickened out and just wanted to just graduate and be done with school. And then I went and moved to California to be a ski bum. So I was just bumming around in California, just skiing and not really doing anything.
And you said Mammoth, right?
Yeah, Mammoth Lakes, which is just outside of Yosemite. So it's like a
beautiful up that way, man.
Beautiful, super cool part of the country. Yeah. So I was living there, and it's funny because I never actually thought I would get into writing at all. Like, it would never really cross my mind that this would be something that I was good at, let alone would be good at. I got bad grades in all my English classes in college and in high school too. I didn't do very well. And then I got passed up for a promotion for this like crappy job working for the ski resort in Mammoth Lakes for Mammoth Mountain. I got passed up for just like this crappy mid-level promotion job, and I was super bummed about it. So I go home and I pick up the sheet, which is, like I said before, like the local weekly. I started reading it and just getting all pissed off at like finding like errors, like grammatical errors and stuff in it. So I wrote this letter to the editor that was basically just like, your newspaper's terrible. Like, just like rattling off all these jokes, like just this long thing, just ripping on his paper. A couple days later, I got an email response back from him, and he's like, hey, why don't we meet for coffee? And I'm like, what?
You weren't expecting that.
What? I'm like, what? So I told my roommate at the time, I'm like, okay, if I don't call you in like an hour, I want you to call the cops. Like, cause I thought this guy was just going to kick my ass.
Yeah.
So, I go and meet this guy at a coffee shop, and he like pulls out the paper and he's like, well, what don't you like about it? And I showed up in like a tank top and like jorts and like flip flops. I'm just like, this sucks. This is all right. No one reads this, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't even know it was basically a job interview, but I didn't really know at the time. So I was just,
so you just gave him all,
I just gave him
laid
everything.
it on the table.
I'm like, just laid it all out for him. Yeah. And then he's like, well, if you think you can do better, it was like, do you think you can do better? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe, I guess, So he's like, he's like, you're an English major. Why don't you write some stuff? So,
how did he know you were an English major?
Because I said it in the paper. Okay. I'm like, as an English major, it's like painful to read your newspaper. So the very first story I wrote was about how this local pizza place in town, like, doesn't serve slices after 10. And I wrote this like opinion column about how it's complete bullshit, because they're like right where all the bars are. And I like listed off all the bars that are within like 50 feet of that pizza place. And they ended up like, that was my first story, and it was a super dumb story, but they ended up like having late night slices. And, I was like, wow, this is like kind of cool. So then I like kept writing for him. And then about a month later, I went full time for him, and then been doing that ever since. But the sad thing about that story is that pizza place went out of business about a month later too. And I like to think it has nothing to do with them expanding their hours, but.
So when you came, I mean, you've only been in Utah for a handful of years.
Yeah.
What was your first thought? I mean, when you came to Utah?
I didn't know anything about Utah when I moved here.
Okay, so you never even visited the state.
I've driven through, because I used to drive. I used to have a summer job in New York, so I used to drive from California to New York like every single summer.
But you were a ski bum. You never came out here to ski or anything?
No, because when you're a ski bum, you're poor. So you find a resort that you can work at, and then you just hunker down and you ski every inch of that mountain. You know what I mean? Because you don't make enough money to go anywhere else. Because lift tickets are expensive.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's one reason I never got into skiing or snowboarding, because it was just like, holy hell.
So in Mammoth Mountain's such a great mountain, so I was like, well, I don't want to go anywhere else. But actually, that's not true. I have skied in Utah once.
Before that.
I forgot about this. Yeah, when I was in college, we took a spring break out here, and that was when they had like the club licenses and all that.
Oh, private clubs.
That was in 2004. Yeah, we flew out here to Park City, and I didn't know a thing about Utah then either. And I remember being like super bummed and annoyed that like I had to buy a membership for some bar downtown Park City. I don't remember which bar.
You're like, I got to pay $5 to get in here for a stupid piece of paper. You know, pretty much that's all it was.
And one of my friends, we went to what's now Park City Live when we came here. And, that place was called something else at that time. It was a different owner, so I can tell this story. But we were there, and we're like just three like awkward like stoner college kids just like hanging out in this bar. We know nothing about Park City, you know. And this guy comes up to my friend who was dancing with this girl, and he's like, do you like the girl? And he's like this little like Persian guy, and this little short Persian guy, and my friend's like, yeah, she's okay, I guess, you know. Like, so and then he goes, well, do you like why don't you buy her a drink? And my friend, like, it clicked. My friend is like, holy shit, this is like a prostitute and this guy's a pimp, you know.
For real though.
Yeah,
really
for real. He's like, nah, I'm okay, you know. And then he like runs up to her. He's like, holy shit, dude, that guy's a pimp, and there's a bunch of prostitutes here, you know. So, and that's when I kind of got my first.
So did you pay for it?
No. We were just all like,
nobody will tell. Nobody will tell here.
No, we honestly didn't. We were just like awkward, like 22-year-olds. We were just like, oh my god. So, but that's kind of when we had this whole stereotype that Utah was just totally, you know, right wing Mormons and all the baggage and stereotypes that went along with that. So that experience at that bar.
But this is in Park City.
That's in Park City, yeah.
Which is almost a different world.
Absolutely.
Really.
Absolutely. But being an outsider and not knowing that, it was interesting to me to be like, wow, Utah isn't quite, you know, the same as what people paint it to be. You know what I mean? And that's like one of the things I've discovered since I moved here, and writing for City Weekly as well, is like one of the things I enjoy so much about working at City Weekly and all that is there's such a diverse, strange side of Utah that's so fun to like write about.
It is
so fun. You know what I mean? And one of my friends that are writers out east that work for newspapers out there and all that. And they're always like, why do you stay in Utah? Like, why are you here? And probably the best answer I always say to them is always like, you know, the pendulum really does swing in both ways. So whenever you have like a super strong influence, whether it's a religion or politics or whatever in a community like Mormonism, for example, you always have the complete opposite. You know what I mean? There's always that like,
the counterculture.
There's always that counterculture that pushes back just as hard. So yeah, Utah has a lot of like great stereotypes that people like to joke about and all that. But underneath it all, once you get past all that, there's this super fun, interesting underbelly that's really, really, really cool to write about.
And is that kind of, do you find that that's kind of kept you here? Is that counterculture, that kind of that underground, you know, to find that? Because a lot of people don't find that when they come here. And then they're like, oh, Utah sucks, Salt Lake City sucks, there's nothing to do. When it's actually, in fact, the opposite.
I think you have to look. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the people that have a bad time, I mean, those are the same people that have a bad time on vacation, too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, so, New York sucks. There's nothing to do here.
Oh, Hawaii sucked, man. You know what I mean? You have to, like, look. You have to seek out what's interesting in any city, I think. You know, and Salt Lake doesn't just lift up its skirt. You know what I mean? I don't think. But if you look hard enough and you want to like interact with these kind of people and these cultures, like it's readily available. So, I mean, this Society of Creative Anachronism, you know, practices medieval warfare in Sugar House Park every Wednesday night at 6.
And you attend it regularly, right?
And well, I did for a story. I went down to Moab for one of their giant wars down there once. You know, and there's furry communities, and there's professional ping pong players, and there's
Let's stop furry communities. I'll have to get that information when we stop recording here.
but you get what I'm saying. So I mean, all these things are here, and like, yeah, it's not just going to be on a brochure on the Visit Salt Lake website.
But in any city, it's not either, though.
No,
that's
absolutely.
the thing.
Absolutely no. And I think I like writing about it here just because people have that stigma about Utah, and every time you write a story that's just absurdly bizarre, people are like, "Oh, I can't believe that shit's in Utah." You know what I mean?
So, do you, with writing with City Weekly? I mean, for people that maybe aren't familiar with you kind of cover a little bit of everything, right? Or no?
Yeah,
or
no, I don't have like a beat per se.
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
So,
but is there? You do a lot like with music, right? Or is probably a fair share, I guess, of anybody there.
I dabble in music. I'm not like, I wouldn't call myself a music writer by any means. I like to write about local rap music and rap music in general. It's just like because I'm a fan. You know what I mean?
Of local hip hop or hip hop in general?
Both. Yeah, absolutely both. But what I would say like my main beat there is just, I mean, the thing I like to do the most there is the Secret Handshake. That's my blog.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do this weird promotional plug here. It's cityweekly.net/the secret handshake.
No, we'll plug away and at the end we'll get everything.
And that's just like, they're just like, I mean, that's how I got the job, was pretty much pitching that blog at City Weekly. Because when I gave them that big list of pitches that I told you about earlier, they picked a couple and we wrote them. My first story for City Weekly was about a private investigator who was like busting like cheating couples. And I went with them and we busted this couple. And
here in Salt Lake.
Yeah, and it was crazy. We busted this Mormon couple who was like cheating on each other and all that. So that story was a cover story. That was my first one, and that went out, and that was great. And then, but cover stories at City Weekly work very slowly. So sometimes they take months to write, and there's a long editorial process and all that. And I just had this massive list that I just wanted to bang through, you know what I mean? And they're like, pretty much we're like, okay, look, we can't do all these stories at like the rate you want. So why don't we just give you a blog and just do whatever you want? And I was like, great. Okay, sweet. And no one really knew what it was about in the beginning. It was just like, we're just letting this writer just go nuts. And basically what it's turned into is, like I said before, just whatever the hell strange things present themselves.
In the name of the Secret Handshake, you said, right? Or?
Yeah, so it's cool. And a lot of those secret handshakes turn into cover stories and things like that too, kind of by accident, because I'll like go do something and then be like, wow, this is actually like a cooler, bigger story. Like there was a cover story last fall, I think it was, or last winter, about SLC Punk. And my roommate, who does all the photography and videography for my blog for the Secret Handshake, we went out and tried to find all the locations in the movie and see what they still look like, and we had to contact all these different people from SLC Punk, because this is pre-digital era. Yeah. So they didn't have like digital notes and all this, where these shooting locations were. Like these were written on like trapper keepers and then thrown away. So a lot of these guys we had to dig way down the production list of guys like gaffers and stuff to like tell us where to go, and we found all these locations and it was really cool. And my editor was like, why don't we just run this why don't you interview Marandino, because he's doing the director, James Marandino, and because he's going to do the sequel. Yeah. And we'll just run it as a cover story. And I was like, yeah, okay. And that story was fun, and so that's how a lot of that happens. Like I'll just go out to just do some story that I think is personally like kind of dumb and trivial, but it's interesting to like me or my friends. And then it turns into like a bigger story. So
you're not like given assignments. You kind of just run with it.
If I would have told my like 15-year-old self that you're going to be 30 years old, giving yourself homework assignments, and having to do them, like I would have thought I was insane, but yeah, that's pretty much how it works. I'm just giving myself homework assignments.
Now the Secret Handshake, is that a Utah reference there for?
It wasn't, because like when I moved here, I didn't know anything about like Mormonism at all. Yeah. And Bill Frost, who writes the Ocho and all that, he's our web editor. When I started to get that blog going, he was like, why don't you just give me a list of like 50 blog names? So, I like went home one night after work and just like drank a case of beer and just wrote down just this big mess of just horrible names. And Secret Handshake was like one of them. Some of them were like really bad. They were like Justin Bieber's Bangs and like.
So he picked the name.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
any backlash on that name at all?
No, not at all. But I think it fits.
Yeah.
I think it kind of fits what it does, because like I said, it's kind of about like the underbelly and just strange shit. So.
Is there like do you come out with something on that blog like on a regular basis?
It's supposed to be weekly. It's supposed to be weekly.
Just kind of whenever.
It's supposed to be weekly, but like what it's kind of turned into in the last 5 months here is whenever I can get a chance to do it, just because I've been so busy with like other stories. I recently had like a pretty crazy ankle injury, and that set me out for like a month. But the nice thing about that was like I got this, I broke my ankle riding my bike. I fell off my bike, and the nice thing about that was the doctors gave me a shit ton of ketamine. And have you ever done ketamine before?
No.
So it's this, it's also known as special K, or like horse tranquilizer. So they gave me this just massive amount of ketamine, and I basically went into what's called the K-hole. That's what it's called when you're just tripping balls on this shit. And
so you were having a good time.
Oh my, it was insane. So basically what happened was I like processed going on this insane drug trip, and then a couple weeks later after my surgery, I texted my editor, Rachel Piper, and I was like, I'm going to write a story about ketamine for the Secret Handshake. And she's like, ooh, no, don't do it. And I'm like, well, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm like, whatever. But she didn't care. She was just messing with me, So I ended up writing this story about the effects and how awesome it is to like just trip nuts on ketamine. And that was a fun Secret Handshake blog post. So I don't think that one had potential to be a cover story, but.
But have you had any stories? I mean, I asked about backlash. Have you had any stories? Well, I guess since you're here, more like you've written that have come back to bite you in the ass, about a subject matter or about something like that.
Not in Salt Lake. I think the readers here don't
somebody. How dare you write about that subject?
Yeah,
especially if you start touching on religion.
Not on like the Secret Handshake stuff, because I'm mostly a lot of those are like first person narratives, and that's just like exactly how it is. So people, I don't think tend to be too offended about that.
Well, I think people are becoming a little more like, oh, okay, let's not like completely take this serious. Maybe too.
Yeah,
we're a different generation.
I also don't like get my nut off on like ripping on religion either.
Well, I don't either.
No, but that's just like
I don't either.
No, but that's just like, I mean, I have my opinions about it and stuff, but I don't really like doing the whole like, well, Mormonism this and blah blah blah. Like, I really don't care, and I think there's like a lot of readers in Salt Lake who also just like are tired of hearing about Mormon issues.
Now, you didn't grow up Mormon at all,
no.
right? Okay, yes.
No, I mean, I respect it, whatever. That's what you want to do, but like, I think at least the readers I know I have, and the ones I basically write stories for my friends. That's how I think about it when I'm writing a story. I think about like my college friends and like stuff like that, and I wonder if they're going to think that if this is funny,
okay,
or if this is interesting. So I don't think any of my friends are like, oh, Colin's touching off on some Mormon issues. You know what I mean?
So when you sit down to write, you kind of you view that as your audience. You're writing to them, your college friends, your friends. Because when I've taken writing classes, they're like, okay, view who's going to read this, who's going to be your audience.
No, that's like one of the most important things, and I actually run our internship program along with our editor, Rachel Piper at City Weekly, and we both manage all of our interns and assign stories to them and all that. And that's like the number one thing I tell them all the time. I'm like, well, who's like your audience on this, And for the Secret Handshake, I know my audience is, or at least I think in my head when I'm writing them, is people that are like just as twisted and like fucked up as me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they want to know exactly what I think about this. However, if I'm like writing like a story about, a local rapper or like, Riff Raff coming into town, I know my audience is going to be like rap fans and like fans of that music. So so that's more dialed in for that kind of thing. So I think it's like that with any kind of thing as well, whether it's a podcast or whatever, you kind of have a sense of who your audience is. I think you should. And
it's tough though sometimes,
absolutely.
Because you're like, well, who is going to read this? Who's going to listen to this? And you try to pretend you know who's out there listening or reading.
And sometimes you're way off, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I got lucky. I never did an internship. Like I said, I was never good in school and writing. I could always do it. You know what I mean?
What made you want to be a writer then?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. Like I liked reading. I like to tell jokes with my friends. I was always kind of a storyteller amongst my friends, like just telling stupid stories and jokes. I can memorize. I know most like Simpson episodes. I can like recite them by heart.
So you feel those are good qualities of being a good writer?
I don't know. I think
Simpsons episodes.
I think I just absorbed all that crap.
Yeah.
You know, my parents used to I used to just rattle off Simpson jokes all the time when I was in high school. My parents would be like, I wish you'd memorize your schoolwork and stuff like you do the Simpsons. And I pretty much slide in a Simpson joke in almost every blog post I write.
Okay.
There's almost always at least one Simpson.
So, I mean, what do you must feel some sense of satisfaction or rewarding, or, I mean, what is reward, like the most rewarding thing for you being a writer? What do you enjoy the most?
Well, what I was going to say just a minute ago, I kind of got sidetracked on some Simpson stuff.
Fine.
But what I was going to say is,
Simpsons, there's always Simpsons.
But I got lucky that, that first writing job I had with the Sheet in California, I got lucky because, the editor and the publisher, Ted Carlson, he just like let me do whatever I wanted as a 25-year-old writer who knows nothing,
which is rare,
which is crazy
in the writing world.
No, which is insane. Like I can't think of like any other newspaper that would like let somebody do that. So I got that freedom right off the bat. He goes, look, I want you to write about whatever you want in whatever way you want. And it was crazy for me. So that's what I was doing full time as a job, when I was like 25, 26 years old. So I got to do a lot of cool things and I got to like make a lot of mistakes. You know what I mean? I got to write pieces that got me in a lot of trouble and almost got me fired and had people write angry letters at me. I got to figure out what my voice was, what my audience was, and what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And I don't think a lot of people kind of get that freedom when you're first starting out as a writer. Like usually when you're first starting out, you're covering a city council meeting, maybe if you're lucky. You know what I mean? Like no one's like, hey, go ski in this biathlon and train with this Olympian guy and then get drunk the night before with him. And, like I got to do like really fun stories like that at a super young age. So
it just helped you grow as a writer and figure out who you were and what you're even interested in writing. Cause I enjoy writing as well. And it's like, well, what do I enjoy writing about?
Right.
And then to find out and
no, and that's the hardest thing. I think anyone can be a writer. It's not like a difficult thing. Everyone can tell a story. But I think what's difficult is learning what you're good at and how to tell that story.
And what, for somebody listening that maybe is interested, what would you recommend to find out what you're
you just got to write a lot.
Just write a lot
and get feedback from like your friends and things like that. I think, right now, I mean, the whole starting like your own blog, it would, if I wasn't at City Weekly and I was just graduating college right now, that's probably if someone told me to, I would take that advice. I would just start my own blog and just start writing as much as possible and sucking in the beginning, and then eventually like getting better, because, no one's going to like let you do what you want to do at a newspaper right off the bat. I mean, I'm like, I must be some like strange, weird 0.1% of the population that ever got that opportunity. So it was kind of like just writing a blog and figuring it out in the beginning for me.
Talking about blogs and talking about reading and, City Weekly obviously is still a print publication, but it's online as well. And there's a big shift right now with online, print media. Especially even here in Salt Lake with the Tribune and all of that. What are your thoughts on print media versus online? Do you think we need print media?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think right now there's a misconception that it's one or the other.
Okay.
I think as humans, we like to, put things in easy compartments and then say like, this is print and this is digital and one's eventually going to be better than the other. I don't really believe it's that simple. I think, and everyone's trying to figure it out right now, and this is just my opinion, but I think what we're slowly starting to figure out is that they're just branches on the same tree, and that there's always, print's never going to go away. I like firmly believe that. And I firmly believe that the internet's not going to overtake print or it's going to be less or more, you know what I mean? They're both just part of the same beast, and you use them differently. We have stories that work really well in print, and we have stories that work really well online. Like The Secret Handshake, my blog, I don't think it works that great in print.
Why is that? Why?
Because it's written for like the short attention span internet reader.
And you think a majority of the readers on the internet are very just kind of like Twitter. Let's just read 140 characters, boom, boom, boom.
Absolutely. I think you read things online in a more fleeting way. And I purposely write the secret handshake to be for that person. I try to keep their attention for a very short period of time and give them like a very short, entertaining story. However, if you're at a coffee shop and you pick up a City Weekly or the Tribune, you're gonna punish through some stories. You know what I mean? You're gonna sit down with your coffee or maybe a cigarette, and you're gonna like read a whole story and really get into a story, because your mind frame is just like, this is what I want to do right now. You're not distracted by other things. You get what I'm saying with that?
Yeah, I do. And I mean, playing devil's advocate here, I mean, because I kind of have my own mixed feelings with print media versus digital, where it's kind of like I see the point of print media, but as I've gotten more, I mean, you got your iPads and you have your iPhones, your smartphones. Why do we need this? I mean, honestly.
No, I think
don't get me wrong. I love to go into a bookstore and I love the smell of books, but it's like when you can get it online, what's the point of wasting the paper? And what's the point of, couldn't you get it in front of more people?
They said the same thing about print when TV news started to blow up. They said the same thing about print when radio came out. I mean, this argument is going to be... No.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Oh, no, I'm saying this debate, though, is... I love this debate. But this debate's going to be around long after we're dead. And it's who knows what's after the internet? I don't even know.
Yeah.
But, they're going to be having the same conversation.
I think it's great. I think it's great that City Weekly is in print. I think that I can go to the grocery store and I can pick it up.
I think you make a valid point. Like, why do we need it? And I don't know if there is a direct answer for that. I think it's more human nature. I think people just like to hold things.
But look at cassette tapes.
They're coming back.
They're coming back, right? But no, I mean, but out of all honesty, people don't go to cassette tapes really. I mean, the average person,
right?
Or even CDs. I mean, have become almost obsolete.
Yeah, and
it's not an obscure thing to think of them as obsolete. You don't think newspaper will ever get that way?
No, it's so cheap to print it. And like I said before, I think it's a human nature thing. I think people, as much as we love...
They want something to read on the toilet.
As much as we love... Exactly. As much as we love technology and we love our iPads and our laptops and all that, I think we're just... It's human nature that we like to hold something and something new. You know what I mean? And feel it and hold it. You know what I mean? Digital stuff, as much as I love, like 90% of what I write for City Weekly is online.
Yeah.
I'm mostly an online writer. But I believe, though, that the print aspect of it won't disappear just like I'm going to read this beer bottle right now that I'm holding in my hand. I'm drinking a Wild.
Yeah.
And when I'm sitting at the bar and I'm bored, I want to sit here and I want to hold this bottle.
You want to feel it.
I want to feel this bottle. I want to like see this, like, I want to read the label. I want to like admire this label. You know what I mean? I think it's just that basic subconscious that we have with reading things. And I think, you make a valid point with iPads and all that, but I mean, that format's going to change too.
Well, people say the same thing about radio. I mean, you mentioned it too. They say, well, where's the direction of radio, and our podcast going to take over radio, and this. Nobody knows the future, but at the end of the day, we're always going to read. We're always going to listen, and so it's going to be in one form or another. I'm
just glad that people are still reading. I mean, to be honest with you, I really don't care how they read it. The fact that I can still have a job, like. as a writer and get paid to do it, and people are willing to pay for content, then I think we're still in a good spot.
Well, in the job of a writer is writers are losing their jobs left and right all over the place.
Yes and no. Yeah. I mean, it was like that for a minute.
I mean, journalism in general, you don't really see a lot of people going that direction much.
I think, yeah. I mean, you're right. I think it's harder to get into journalism. That's kind of the downfall with it right now, because not a lot of places were hiring for a while. City Weekly we just hired another full-time staff writer. We have like one of the youngest staffs I think our newspaper's ever had in editorial. I think our average age in there's got to be like 30. We have a huge fleet of freelance writers that we pay to write for us. I think this like business model that still exists, unfortunately, of not paying for content that a lot of people have kind of banked their publications on is starting to luckily go away. I think that's a good thing. Like, we need to pay for content because you want good content. Like when you read a publication that you can tell when it's just a reporter that's not getting paid. It's a loose story.
Well, let's take a break. I want to talk to you. You recently went out to Denver.
I did, yeah.
And I want to talk to you about that, but let's take a break. And then we'll come back, and I want to talk to you about Denver.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And your recent trip out there, because I haven't been out there yet since everything has been going on out there. So
yeah,
we'll talk about that, and when we come back. So I wanted to talk to you about Denver. Was it business, pleasure? What took you to Denver? I mean, because I've just followed along, following you on Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that.
Yeah, our editor had had an idea to do a marijuana travel guide, and
for City
Weekly, yeah, because we knew so many people were like traveling from Salt Lake to Denver to buy weed, and the initial thought for this story was to just kind of do it from the desk, like call people in Denver and like kind of do like an over the phone sort of thing, and then after enough discussion with like me and this other writer, Colby Frazier, who's the co-writer on this story for me, we were both just like, look, like if we're going to do this like marijuana travel guide, we have to go
and experience it. Go
be tourists in Denver, and go do it. Especially while this like bubble exists in Denver, because we can get into that later, but we wanted to do it like right now. This is like the best time to do that story and go be tourists. So that was the concept behind that story. And that comes out not tomorrow. Oh, no, sorry, not
in a couple weeks.
In a couple weeks, yeah. It's going to come out. It's called Gone to Pot. That'll be a cover story in a couple weeks here.
Which, I mean, that's going to be a lot of people are interested in this, man. This is a big thing.
No, one of our graphic designers at City Weekly like made a joke that you could just put a marijuana leaf on the cover and just fill it with like phone book listings and people would pick it up, and it's true, you could. But this other writer and I, Colby Frazier, we both wanted to write what it's like exactly to drive to the closest dispensaries right over the border and what all the laws are. We had a lot of questions about doing that trip. So it was a fun experience.
So what is the closest dispensary to Utah?
It depends on where you're driving from. From Vernal, the closest recreational dispensary, which means, that anybody
21 and over, right?
21 and over can buy. You don't need a medicinal marijuana card. The closest one's in Steamboat Springs. There's 3 of them.
Which is how far?
It's about 100 miles or so.
From
120 miles from Vernal. It's actually not that far.
That's ridiculous.
It doesn't really feel that far.
Yeah.
But, and then from the south, the closest from southern Utah is Glenwood Springs, which is like another little resort town right over the border there. And that has a big dispensary there as well. And, you got to be careful doing it. I mean,
because are cops patrolling the border heavily?
We interviewed some highway patrolmen and stuff like that for this story to kind of get a sense.
Utah or Colorado?
Utah,
yeah.
Colorado, they don't really care. It's going over the border that they care about. You know what I mean? Because, it's just like any other drug or even alcohol. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a limit.
It's like if we go to Wyoming to buy a keg or something.
Right, yeah, you can't. So, and when we interviewed some of these highway patrolmen and all that, they were like, we haven't really had any problems.
Really?
Almost minuscule. Yeah. So I don't think they're really necessarily looking for it. It might get worse. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe this story is going to ruin all the fun for everybody. I don't know. But
yeah.
But
now the interviews with these, are these going to be part of the coming out on City Weekly?
Yeah. The fun thing about it really was, Colorado right now is they're the only state that's doing this recreational thing right now.
Yeah.
That's full on, all gears revving, full on marijuana legalization. Like they're the only state.
And all eyes are on them.
Right.
But it seems like they're doing a good job.
And the state right now, the sense that we got while we were there and interviewing business owners and stuff like that is that business owners are treating Colorado like basically a testing ground, like a test tube of how this marijuana business is going to work on a larger scale. So right now, all this money is coming into Colorado and people are investing in everything weed related, not just dispensaries. I mean, limo services that you can smoke in, bed and breakfasts that are all about weed. Like anything.
420 bed and breakfast.
Bud and breakfast. We went to one.
A bud. That's what it's called. Bud and breakfast.
Yeah, we went to one. So I mean, it's literally any remote, any sliver of relation to marijuana. There's people there with money investing and trying it out and figuring it out. One guy we talked to, like I said, we went to a bud and breakfast. He owns this bigger umbrella company called Mary Jane Entertainment LLC, and his whole thing is like all weed related industry. And this guy, he speaks with like a heavy New Jersey accent, and he's got like these scars on his nose, like he's been punched in the face like 100 times. And he's just like, yeah, man, like, you know, I asked him the question. I was like, what are you going to do when Washington, which in July is going to legalize and be full on recreational, just like Colorado? He's like, I'll be there, man. I'll be there, bro. He's like, you know, that's how he talks.
Well, he'll just be everywhere. You know, they'll create chains.
So like I said before about like these businesses treating it like a testing ground, like that's literally what they're doing. They're seeing how they can run a franchise or business with marijuana. And then as soon as it's legal in Illinois or Washington or Nevada or California, they're just going to move there and do that same thing, what they're doing Denver over there. So it's pretty crazy.
I mean, is it like when you go there, I mean, like I've been, you know, Venice Beach in California and stuff like that. I mean, it's just like, oh, the doctor's in, you know, it's like everywhere you turn, it's like, it's there. I mean, is that kind of how it is there?
You know, one thing I kind of thought it was going to be, going there, I had this vision in my head that it was going to be like this Amsterdam kind of,
yeah,
you know, atmosphere there.
Cloud of smoke.
And, yeah. But I mean, there pretty much is a dispensary on
every corner,
almost every corner.
Yeah.
I mean, every little plaza, there's a mom and pop dispensary, or there's a big corporate one. I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, you can't, and they're all got like really funny names too. Like you start losing track of like what's a dispensary and what's not, because the names are all kind of puns on marijuana.
Yeah.
So you'll see some storage facility called like Bud Storage. You're like, oh, that must be a dispensary. You're like, oh no, it's just an actual storage facility. Like, because there's so many. But I
it's
thought
a
it
place
was going
to
to
store
be
your bud.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But even though I thought there was like even though there's so many of these dispensaries and it's so legal and all that there, it's not like Amsterdam at all. I mean, it's not this just free for all of weed. I mean, they're doing a really good job, I think, in kind of regulating it and kind of maintaining it.
Well, they're doing a hell of a job. And in my opinion, I'm grateful because I know all eyes are on them as far as
they
like,
know
okay, is the crime going up? Is the murder rates going up? Is, you know, what kind of money is it bringing to the state? Do you think Utah, I mean, people say, oh, Utah will never have weed legalized. I mean, it will happen. I mean, federally, it's going to get legalized, I think.
I don't want to say never. I mean, we'll probably be the last.
You think so?
But if it does happen, it will probably be the last.
Just because of tourism dollars, though. I mean,
but the money is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, just in January of this year, like right when the law went through in January.
Oh, trust me, I followed it, man.
Just in January, they made $20 million.
Yeah,
in just tax.
They ran out of weed, from what I understand. They sold so much, or something ridiculous like that.
I don't know if they ran. I mean, yeah, I think I read a story somewhere.
We're out of weed.
They're making so much money so fast. These dispensaries over there, they don't know what to do with it, to be honest with you. And like, this is something we didn't have space for in the story, and I'll tell you this. But these dispensaries, like, they can't put their money in banks because the banks are federally run. You know what I'm saying? Because that money, you know, marijuana is not recognized as a legal thing through the federal government. So,
but aren't they making banks? So, right, there's banks that are, or something like that.
No, they're not making banks. What they're doing is putting their money into like, with these like credit card companies, and then like changing the name every 6 months of what their business is.
Really?
It's sort of like a gray area. It's not money laundering, but it's like this gray moving money sort of thing. But they're making so much money that they don't know what to do with it. So a lot of them, one of the dispensaries, actually the two biggest ones we went to, are both currently at the moment, doubling in size because A, they want to and they can, and B, they have to because they have to spend that money. You know what I mean? We're talking millions of dollars in cash, like on hand that what else? You can't put it anywhere. You know what I mean?
You can't put it under your mattress.
No, you can't just dig a hole in the backyard and just call it good. So a lot of them are just hiring contractors and just doubling in size. And we went to this one place called Medicine Man, and it's the biggest dispensary in the world in terms of marijuana coming out the front door. And they are just in the process right now of building a $2.5 million expansion. And it's like a giant laboratory is what it looks like. It's all white and clean and super expensive vents and, all that kind of shit. So, I mean, these guys are not messing around and they have a ton of cash on hand. And that being said, like there's still this like strange feeling when you're in Denver of marijuana, the sketchiness of marijuana.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, there's still a cartel influence in Colorado that Denver's desperately trying to get rid of. Both the Russian mafia and the Mexican cartels. They still own and operate dispensaries there, and they're trying to get rid of those guys.
Who's trying to get rid of them? Just the state. The state.
Yeah. So when you go to some of these dispensaries, I mean, the big one I was just mentioning, Medicine Man. There's a guy at the front door, ex-military, with a big Glock on his side. And he's like, hey, welcome to Medicine Man. He's super nice, but he's got this, he's ready to go.
Intimidating. Yeah.
He's a little intimidating. He's ready to go. And there's 3 other dudes just like him inside the dispensary. So, and they have to be kind of sketchy like that.
But you didn't see like any like craziness out of hand and
no, not at all.
Throw anybody down or
no, not at all. I mean, the funny thing about it is like, even though it's totally legal there, it's like
people are pretty respectful.
People just don't care.
Yeah.
There. I mean, I think we care because we're tourists going over there.
It's awesome.
Yeah, we're like, wow, this is great, but no one really cares over there. Like we stayed at a
bud and breakfast.
Well, we stayed at a buddy's house, and
buddy,
yeah, and you can legally, if you're a resident of Colorado, you can legally grow up to 6 plants. So these guys had just a whole bunch of buds just drying out in their basement, and they had just jars of nugs all over their house.
Like it was nothing.
Like it was nothing. There was actually weed on the floor, and I'm like kicking it around.
So how much weed can you have in your house then? If you can grow 6 plants, can you have like an unlimited amount of pounds?
It's not an unlimited amount. I don't know the exact number, but it's an obscene amount. You
can
have more than you could ever possibly smoke. I mean, it's just dumb. Like I was sitting on the couch, at one point, and I kind of sat up, and I just noticed something was on my shirt, and I would brush over, and there's just a big piece of weed stuck to my shirt, and nobody cared. You know what I mean? It's like,
you don't live with fear. Is somebody going to knock?
No, I grew up in the culture around weed with my friends in college and stuff that smoked weed. Like everyone is very, close knit about your weed. You put it back in the jar, and then you put the jar in this little baggy thing, and then you put it away at night.
Yeah, you got to hide it. You got to if you got to blow through a tube,
and you kind of hide it or whatever. Like these guys, just weed everywhere. And the funny thing is about that as well is like the locals there, they still just buy weed from like their friends, even though that's illegal, but they still just buy weed.
So you can't buy, like if I was selling weed, it would be illegal.
It'd be like you selling cigarettes. Like you just can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But but everyone just still does because it's cheaper. Like an ounce right now in Denver is roughly on average about $400.
Wow.
An ounce here in Utah from like your sketchy friend who sells weed's like $200.
Yeah, and that's for good stuff. Good stuff.
No, but I mean, the great benefit about going to Denver and doing that though is like there's nothing like
the freedom.
Just walking into a dispensary and feeling like you're 21 again, just being like, oh my God, like
what's the wildest, like, I mean, because they have all the edibles and all that. I mean, I'm sure you just saw some bizarre thing. I mean, what was the craziest thing you saw them make in the form? Like,
yeah, we went to this one dispensary that's right downtown on 16th Street, which is like, imagine if like Salt Lake closed down Main Street and it's just this big pedestrian mall with like a free shuttle that went up and down it. That's what 16th Street's like. It's like 15 blocks of just shopping and just shit. It's like this big touristy zone.
Yeah.
And of course, there's like a big touristy dispensary, like right there, like right by like the Bennigan's, like on this thing. So me and Colby Frazier, the other writer, were like, we have to go to like the main touristy one, So we go in there and it's like an Apple store for weed. I mean, literally, like everything's all white and like clean and you know what I mean? Like the counters, and there's like a circular counter in the middle with all the sales associates are standing inside the circular counter. And then the rest of the store is just these little tables everywhere with jars of nugs, with the little holes in the top. And you can kind of, smell the weed. And then right next to the jar was like a little Samsung tablet that would tell you, this is OG Kush. And like, you know what I mean? Like, tell you all about like what the
benefits. What the hell you feel like and everything.
Exactly. And what it tastes like and all that. And then, so that's how that whole store is laid out. And then there's like this whole like edible section and like the hash oils. And the biggest thing that's going off right there, the most bang for your buck really in Denver, I think, is the whole, dab vaporizer stuff.
Okay.
All the wax. That's like, I think it's like $50 for like one little thing of wax, and that's like, I mean, that's a lot of concentrated marijuana. And those come in like every flavor, and like that's what everyone seems like they were smoking over there off the little vaporizers, because they just look like e-cigarettes.
Yeah, no,
and you can't smell them.
They're
you
great.
Can't, so yeah, that was like the big thing over there. Really, that I didn't think was going to be a big thing. So I was kind of thinking people wanted to buy physical weed, but people are really into the.
So I mean, are they just hiring average people to work in these places? Do you know, or are they just? Is it just?
I don't know what the hiring process was like, but I know, but I know some of these. I mean, the bigger dispensaries have massive staffs. The Medicine Man one was like, I think there was like 35 people working there, and we went into one room. It was just like the room where they're just trimming all the buds. Yeah, and it was funny because we walk into this room and they're, like Beastie Boys is like blasting in there, and there's just all these dudes sitting around this table just trimming weed, just like whatever. Just,
were they smoking or just trimming? No, just trimming.
Probably. One thing too is like is crazy, I guess, as it sounds like, the government's keeping tabs on these operations like pretty heavily, and every dispensary actually has cameras like in every room with a live feed back to the cops. Or whoever,
and they're probably drug testing their employees.
Oh no, yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I didn't ask that. I didn't ask that. I mean, I doubt they are, but they could though. I mean, you can still get fired in Colorado for failing a drug test.
Yeah, like probably like more manual labor jobs, machinery, construction,
anything where you
work,
shouldn't be under the influence. Yeah. So I don't know. Every company has their own policy, but it was just funny to see, and we were kind of speculating, like, I doubt they're making that much money, but I bet they love their job.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I would. Yeah. So again, that's going to be in the City Weekly. I mean, are you, who else wrote, you and Colby?
Colby Frazier. Yeah.
Yeah. Wrote this piece. So keep an eye out for that.
Co-written piece, which is fun to do.
So what else do you like to do in your spare time?
Oh,
besides writing?
Well, the shitty thing about being a writer, I feel like, is you never really get a break.
You're just constantly writing.
Well, you're not writing. You're just
thinking.
If you're not writing, you're just being tormented by a story you haven't written yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That sounds really lame, but like I've like woken up in the middle of the night at like 2 a.m. and like figured out the perfect lead for a story and sat there and just wrote it till 9 a.m. and felt really good about it. And then I felt like I could chill for a minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it's like. You're just constantly keeping this. There's no glory to like finishing a good story. You could have just written the best story you ever thought you've ever written. Like, wow, that weed story that I just wrote is so good. I love this story. And you could have that mentality. And then as soon as you turn it in, you're immediately like, fuck, I got to write this other story.
Yeah, it's just like on to the next one. You don't even get a chance to breathe or let that story get its light.
So that's what it kind of feels like. It's sort of, I told my friends, like, it kind of feels like that feeling you have in high school of like having a paper due, that like anxiety. It's just like having that all the time. I think that's why we're all like alcoholics.
Yeah. So you deal with that anxiety all the time.
Oh, all the time. Yeah. I should probably smoke more weed than I actually do. But no, I got a dog, Hot Dog.
What kind of dog?
She's like a shepherd mix, and her name's Hot Dog. Yeah. I actually have a story coming out here in a couple of weeks about, I interviewed Hot Dog through a pet psychic and got to ask my dog a bunch of like personal questions.
Nice.
That was pretty fun.
Was that a good experience? But I guess we'll find out in the story.
It was. Yeah. Yeah, you will. No, no, I found out my dog, like, she's been in love before, and she's content with her food. It's okay.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Things that are important.
She has her own daily routine. She doesn't care that I leave. So we
stays home and watches TV.
Yeah, right? We have our own things that we do. So no, that was like, so I hang out with my dog a lot. I used to ride my bike everywhere all the time, right? But like I said, I got an ankle injury and I've been laid up for quite a while. But like I said before too, I got to write a nice story about using drugs in the hospital.
Now, can people find this story anywhere, or
I think
it somewhere on City Weekly?
If you go to City Weekly, like just the main page,
because I want to read it, and maybe I'll even put the links on with the show notes if I can find it. I'd love to read it.
No, if you go to the main page on City Weekly, there's a tab up on the upper left corner that says blogs, and if you hover your mouse over it and scroll down, you'll see the secret handshake, and then the whole archive's there.
And you read every story, boom, right there.
They're all right there, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the ketamine one's called, like, The K-Hole is Deep. And
approximately what time period, like how long ago?
That was like a month ago.
Oh, so pretty recent.
Yeah, it's
pretty recent.
It's just a couple back, yeah. I haven't written that many secret handshakes over the past month or so just because of this weed story and a few other projects I've been working on. But
yeah. And I'm going to get kicked by many listeners if I don't ask you. I ask a lot of people that come on the show, favorite local eating spots. Some of your favorites. Where does Colin like to eat? Obviously local related.
Local places, yeah. Well, I live in Sugar House. I live pretty close to Highland High School over there at 21st South. So I frequent like the Sugar House, that main little hub area, quite a bit.
The annex area.
Yeah, that whole zone.
They finally have cleaned that area up. That was so depressing, that hole in the ground.
I feel like I was having this conversation with a friend the other day. Like, I feel that whole area right there is going to be awesome in like 10 years.
It's going to be the new downtown or something.
It's going to be so fun in like 10 years, but I'm going to be like 40 years old and like lame.
Yeah. Get out of my yard. Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, you weren't around when that used to be, when like Blue Boutique was there and all that.
Oh, Blue Boutique still. Oh.
Well, it was in that area though. The heavy metal shop was there. They had my mind is blank on the coffee shop, and I know people listening are kicking me for not remembering the name. Blue Cats was that the name of Blue Cats?
I don't know.
You weren't around.
I don't know. I wasn't here, but I was here for the hole. I remember
the hole in the eyesore.
I like Rocky Mountain Cafe, which is like right over by the Sugar House.
Yeah,
liquor store. I go there on the weekends and eat like diner style omelets all the time. That's like a favorite spot of mine because it's never busy. Like I like Blue Plate and Eggs in the City. Those are both, pretty adjacent to where I live as well, but it's just always packed. And I just like Rocky Mountain Cafe because it's like, there's just like surly old ladies there who are, welcome to Rocky Mountain Cafe. And they give you like the big giant cup of coffee, which I really like too. And like the old, like a Christmas mug. So, I eat there quite a bit downtown, when I'm at work, at the City Weekly office. I'm a big fan of Red Hots. I've been preaching Red Hots to like a lot of my friends.
I haven't been there. Pretty good.
Yeah, it's owned. I believe it's owned by the same people as Lamb's Grill.
Okay.
It's right next door. It's like
it's a hot dog place.
It's a hot dog place.
Yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
And they have like these Kobe beef hot dogs, and like most of them are like wrapped in bacon and have some kind of like Asian mustard on them, and like a coleslaw, and like this big baguette thing. And it's like $5, and they have banh mi sandwiches too. So that place is pretty good. Big fan of Spitz too. I like the Spitz that opened
Delicious.
up. That's also I'm really just picking places that are like a block from City Weekly.
And that's expected. That's where you spend a lot of your time, man.
Because I don't like to walk more than like a block on my lunch break. But I'm a big fan of that place. I'm trying to think. I know I'm missing out on like
no. And I was just curious because I'm always trying to promote local, obviously, with the show, and there's always new eateries coming out in places that we forget to go to, and I just try to get as much stuff in the spotlight as possible.
Oh, also peppers, man. I eat a lot of peppers.
Okay,
I know a lot of people are like, really peppers, but man, their Cobb salad is on point.
It's off the hook, huh?
Over there. Yeah, it's a good Cobb salad, and it's like $8, and it's huge, and it's like I said, it's like on the same block as where I work. So
yeah. What else are you? I mean, summer's here. What are you? Anything you're looking forward to? I mean, any concerts, music events that you're really looking forward to this summer, or anything?
I think, like a lot of people. I mean, how did you feel about the Twilight concert series announcement this year?
It's different.
Yeah,
I think it's one of the most different lineups in my opinion. A lot of hip hop. Which, I mean, is great in my opinion.
I don't think it was that much hip-hop.
You don't think so? I mean, more than.
I think it was just better hip-hop, period. But.
Okay, so I grew up on Wu-Tang Clan. I mean, I grew up on Wu-Tang. But seriously? Come on. Really?
Man. I mean,
I don't know.
If I'm
going to go.
$5 to see Wu-Tang, and especially Run the Jewels, too, which is LP and Killer Mike. If you've never listened to those guys, they had probably one of the best albums.
No. It's like, don't get me wrong. Like I love Wu-Tang and I'm excited for it, but it's just, to me, it's just like, that's just such an obscure group to pick to play Twilight.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a huge shit show down there.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and probably complain about the crowds just like everybody else does. But, it's a $5 Wu-Tang show.
One De La Soul.
De La Soul too. Yeah.
I mean,
I guess I'm less excited about De La Soul just because I feel like they've been here so many times. I feel like on average I see them like once a year, which is great. I mean, I love De La Soul. But Wu-Tang, I mean, to see Wu-Tang once a year would be awesome.
I mean, have they? See, and I haven't followed them. I mean, do they tour? They don't even really tour or anything anymore, do they?
No,
I mean,
they do.
Do they?
Yeah,
See,
they've had a lot going on especially in the last couple of years.
Okay.
Coming back together. Like they used to tour as a group back during like the Rock the Bells tours. I saw them in like 2002 as a whole back then. And then they kind of took a break touring as a one big unit for a couple of years. And I think Coachella a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Was like their first time.
I forgot. I forgot about that.
After a big break, that was their first time coming back together.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And then they just released that like $5 million single album.
Yeah, that's like not available or something.
Only one copy of it. And
one
you can
copy.
Go listen to it if you pay like $30, which I'll probably do.
You're a sucker like that, huh?
Well, I mean, I might as well. I mean, you know, why not spend a little money to listen to some good music? But no, I'm excited about Twilight for sure. Beck too. Like I'm a huge Beck fan.
I love Beck. That was probably I was most excited for Beck.
Yeah.
I mean, especially again, $5.
That's gonna be crazy.
And well, they had the heart. I mean, I mean, it is a good line. Don't get me wrong.
One of my favorite pastimes since I've moved to, I should say pastimes, but like one of my favorite things to do since I've moved to Salt Lake is as soon as they announce Twilight is to just read all the comments on Facebook on like the KUTV page or like the Tribs Facebook page after they post it, and it's always these like,
oh, this is stupid.
Well, it's always like these like house moms, you know, who are just like 50 years old, and they're like, "This is the worst lineup ever," you know. And they're just like, just die. It's hilarious, you know. And I'm always just thinking like, I don't think they were thinking about you when they booked Wu-Tang, but it's okay. You know, you should still go. You should still go experience Wu-Tang. I think you'll like it. Twilight, not Twilight. I'm sorry, Red Butte. I'm not really psyched on the Red Butte lineup this year. Earth, Wind, and Fire. I'm glad they came back because they canceled last year. I'm glad they're like getting their, you know, fulfilling their obligations and coming back and doing that show. And my dad will like kill me if I don't go see them. My dad has like one of the most epic record collections of all Motown and R&B. Like when I used to listen to like rap and stuff in high school, he would be like, "Oh, that's a Shy Light sample. Oh, that's a," you know. So, you know, so like just he educated you a just
lot.
dropping old man knowledge about like original samples and stuff on me all the time. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big rap fan, but I also, you know, like I'm excited about Beck too and some of those other guys. So,
well, how can people find you online? Let's run down the list and anything else you want to talk about or anything else you want to mention. But I know you're on Twitter and Facebook, so feel free to mention how people can find you online.
Yeah, if you aren't afraid of like hearing some dick jokes and stuff, you can find me on Twitter.
And that's just your name, right? Colin Wolf.
It's my name back. It's Wolf Colin.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Because there's apparently some other asshole out there that has my Twitter domain, but I'm Wolf Colin at Twitter or whatever.
At Wolf Colin, yeah.
Or whatever.
Can people add you as a friend on Facebook, or are you kind of weird about that?
No, I'm not too weird about it. You know, it's funny you say that though, because like, you know, I get some like random people friending me and stuff on Facebook, and that's fine. Like I'm cool with that, you know. But it's like a huge buzzkill when they're immediately like, "Hey, what can you do for me?" Like
people really will message you
like immediately. Like I mean,
really?
like a minute after I like accept their friend request, and I'm just like, dude, let's like ease into this a little bit. Like, you know what I mean?
Like take me out to coffee first or something.
Take me out to dinner. Put some lipstick on me first.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I'll just get these like messages, especially like some local musicians and stuff. And I get it. It's fine. You know, they want to get their stuff out, but it's like, man, like just email me at work, man. My email's like right in the paper. Like you can.
Oh, really?
You can email me too, you know, but yeah, I'm not weird about it, but it's just like if it's, you know, sometimes people just use this Facebook stuff.
So I've been doing it all wrong. I should be messaging people when I add them and say, "What? Get my name out there."
Yeah, I mean that's okay. I mean, I don't know.
Do you have a fan page, a Colin Wolf fan page? Come on.
No, do those work? Do those work? Do people?
I don't know.
Do those actually work?
I think they're best for like people because you can only have 5,000 friends on Facebook. So people that kind of reach that capacity, I think it's good for that.
I think I like turn off a lot of people on social media that follow me because they'll see like I'm a City Weekly writer or something. And they go, "Oh, I'm sure this is an informative fellow," and then I just use it to just, like I said, just rattle off stupid jokes and shit all the time. And so I'll like lose a few followers every day or whatever. It's cool.
Does that bum you out though when people stop following?
No, you know what's funny about it though is like my a couple of Christmases ago I went home. And my dad like pulled me aside and he's like, "You know, you're your Facebook posts are like really embarrassing your mom. And that's how I knew I was like coming together as a writer, you know? But he's like, you basically said, you know, like your social media statuses or whatever are like tearing the family apart. And I'm just like, seriously? Like, all right, whatever. We're okay now. I think we have an understanding. Because I told them, like, it's just, because they're like, yeah, you mom's friends get like, they like Messenger, and they're like, what's wrong with your son? But I just like don't care. I mean, I just don't care about that shit. I mean, it's whatever. It's just social media. It's
I think so many people get too wrapped up.
Like trying to create like some image on social media. It's like, man, who gives a shit? Like, it's just put out all your crappy thoughts and just see what happens. I think is like, to me, like the best strategy. Maybe some people shouldn't, I guess, but unless you're like if you're like a white supremacist, maybe you shouldn't do it. Yeah. But I mean, just. It's funny to me too. I'm not gonna like dog on some like the local like TV guys, but I love seeing like some of like the local news reporters and stuff. Seeing they're like, you can tell they like want to bust out, you know, on like social media, like on their Instagram page or their like Twitter, but they just can't, you know.
Well, they're so afraid to.
They just
talk,
can't.
man.
They just can't, you know, like, and they'll always have those clause like in their bios and stuff that are like, my opinions are my own, and a retweet isn't a promotion or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like, well, no shit, it's not, you know. But do you get people messaging you, hey, can you retweet this for me? No, I'm not that powerful on Twitter. Yeah. I'm really not. I think I only have like 450 followers on Twitter. Yeah. But
what do you prefer better, Facebook or Twitter?
Honestly, Twitter.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, you know, I think Facebook is just spouting off just like this image that you can portray, and Twitter, like all it is your thoughts. And I like that a little better. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? It's not like,
no, I get it.
It's not like, here's, you know, it's just less shit, I think. I don't know. And I pretty much just followed like local comedians and like a few like local news people on Twitter. And then that's about it. I just looked at Twitter for like jokes and like some local news. And I think that's like all I really want out of social media anyway. It's not your main source of life. I'm not going there to like absorb all my knowledge. No. Yeah. Anything else you want to mention? I've had a hell of a time talking with you, Colin. I'm really glad we got the opportunity to sit down and chat. No, thanks for having me on. It's been an honor to be on your podcast, and I haven't lived in Salt Lake that long, so I'm very, very honored to be on the I Am Salt Lake podcast. It means a lot to me. Thank you. No, absolutely. Anything else you want to mention though before we close? Or I think we talked about it all. Nope, not really. I'm excited to see this article on marijuana. Yeah, check out that weed story, Gone to Pot. It comes out next week. We actually have Colby Stonehawker, our music editor, has a great piece coming out this week that's going to be out while this podcast comes out about neon trees. So you should go check that out. It's like probably the most in-depth story about the biggest band to come out of Utah, and she did a great job interviewing them and hanging out with them. So that's a cool story. And then right after that is Gone to Pot. So it's going to be a good couple weeks on the City Weekly stands. So awesome. And then it's just cityweekly.net, right? Cityweekly.net, yeah. Or at whatever local gas station stand or however you pick it up. Everywhere. Yeah. So awesome. Thanks for having me on. Many thanks goes out to Colin Wolf for coming on this episode of the podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to that really great guy. Was excited to bring him on the show. Hopefully you guys learned a thing or two and enjoyed the conversation. If you have any feedback, drop me an email at iamsaltlake@gmail.com. Say hello. I'd like to know your thoughts. I'd like to know who's out there listening to the podcast and what you're thinking of it. I also have a voicemail line, 385-202-5926. Hey, you know, a few episodes back, I talked a little bit about the brand new rideshare program here in Salt Lake City called Lyft. Great rideshare. If you've never used them, download the app in the App Store. It's LYFT. You can get around this city, around Salt Lake, around West Valley, wherever you're listening to it. I mean, it's even down in Provo, so much quicker than your traditional transportation, however you're getting around. I mean, it's a great way to get around Salt Lake City. Uber is now here in Salt Lake City. That's spelled UBER. And I know some people outside of Utah, you know, a lot of bigger cities, Seattle, California, they're using it. Now it's here in Salt Lake City. But I got a promo code that you guys can use to get $20 off of your first ride.
You just enter in the promo code 54384. It's going to give you $20 off of your first ride. All you need to do is download the app, enter in that promo code, and you're going to get $20 off of your first ride. So the next time you hit the town, consider using Uber. And it's a great way to get around the city. And I can't urge you enough to use these services. They're great individuals, clean cars. They usually have phone chargers, snacks, waters. I enjoy using their services. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I got a couple of recent iTunes reviews, which I can't urge you enough. If you haven't left the podcast an iTunes review, it takes you just a second, and I love reading them. It helps boost the ratings, helps get the podcast exposed to more people. Really nice way to say thank you for taking some time out. You know, producing this podcast takes time, and when I get a review, it helps keep my spirits lifted and helps keep me producing more and more podcasts. So let me read the first iTunes review that I got from, goes by the name of Psychedelic Hemorrhoid. He writes, I have my fingers crossed that Chris will eventually interview a Mormon prophet, dead or alive. Wait, dead will be better. That will answer one of the questions on my mind. I couldn't stop laughing when I got that review. It definitely made me chuckle. You know, actually, when I started this podcast, I always thought, that would be neat to sit down with a general authority or a Mormon prophet and find out their story a little bit better. Whatever your beliefs are, I think it would be a fantastic interview. And maybe if I keep plugging away at this podcast, one day I will have that opportunity to sit down with a Mormon prophet. How wild would that be? Definitely would be an interesting conversation for sure. Another recent iTunes review was from a friend of the podcast, Jordan Mazziotti. He's actually been a guest on the podcast. He left a review recently that writes, I always enjoy Chris and the job that he does with I Am Salt Lake. He always has engaging interviews, and I always learn something new about Salt Lake in each interview. I was honored to be a guest in May 2014. I will continue to listen to I Am Salt Lake. Thanks a lot, Jordan, for the iTunes review. Means a lot. Loved having you on the podcast. Can't wait to get you back on. Love what you're doing with the comedy scene. So thank you so much for leaving that iTunes review. If you want to leave a review for the podcast, just click on that iTunes link on iamsaltlake.com. It's going to take you to iTunes. It takes you just a couple of seconds to leave a review, and then I'll read it here on the podcast. It's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Farmers Market. Every Saturday, 8 to 2, downtown at Pioneer Park. Go support it. A lot of great local vendors, a lot of great individuals down there. It's just a good time. Great way to spend your Saturday morning. Anyways, I'm here once a week with a brand new episode. I got some great interviews lined up, some great individuals here in Salt Lake City that I'm going to be talking to. So until then, I got one more episode of Orange is the New Black, so I'm going to sign out. I'm going to end this podcast now so I can get out and get over to the TV and watch that final episode of Orange is the New Black. You guys have a great week. It's beautiful out there. Get out and enjoy Salt Lake City, and we'll catch you guys again next week.